Welcome to this week's Beyond Bitcoin Hangout. These hangouts are brought to you by the Beyond Bitcoin crew. We encourage everyone to freely share these recordings and to help spread the knowledge and benefits of our DPost 2.0 blockchain technology that we all call BitShares. While listening to this recording, please feel free to visit our website, beyondbitcoin.org, and be sure to stay tuned in for some additional information at the end of the recording. As always, we would like to say thank you, and we appreciate your support. So please continue to vote for our delegate or worker contract so we may continue providing these valuable services to our community members. So once again, welcome, and please enjoy this week's Hangout.
Welcome everybody. Today is Friday, September 4th, 2015. We're joined again by Bytemaster for another Beyond Bitcoin Hangout with the BitShares community, and he's going to be talking a little bit about updates in the BitShares ecosystem for the past week today. Bytemaster, would you like to get started with your weekly update, and then we can move into some of these community questions?
Sure. All right. So this week, been 1 week almost since we launched the last test network. And it's been running all week with almost no incident. So it's been a very good sign of the, we're working out all the kinks in the networking code. There are still a few kinks that we've identified, things that we'd like to improve upon. But so far, it looks like nothing that's going to be a showstopper. We've got people flooding the network. I want to thank everyone who has been participating in the test network.
Do you mind if I stop you just real quick on that, Bytemaster?
Sure.
I hate to interrupt you, but this is a great place to plug that after this hangout, ClayOp is going to be holding something, I believe in Mumble, but I'm not positive. So ClayOp, you're more than welcome to sneak in here real quick for the community to help with this testnet flooding. So anyway, please continue. Sorry about that.
Sure. So we've been flooding the network. We've been put over 60,000 transactions through the network in the past week. That's a lot of transactions. And even with all those transactions, reindexing the blockchain takes seconds. So that's a very, very positive sign. One of the challenges we've had when reindexing the blockchain, when broadcasting and trying to flood the network is that the wallets are too slow when it comes to generating the transactions to broadcast. It's hard for one person to produce more than maybe 50 transactions per second if you've got a really fast machine. And if you're doing this on a slow VPS, then you might have a hard time getting more than 10 or 15 transactions per second. I just wanted to clarify that that's because the wallet is making slow JSON RPC calls to the witness node for each and every transaction that it's broadcasting. So it's not the most efficient at generating transactions. It's good and bad. It means it's harder for attackers to generate lots of transactions, but it makes it more difficult to test. So it's helpful to have many different people on different computers attempting to flood the network at the same time. So go ahead and do your worst. Join the test network. There's a command in the wallet that will do flooding for you. There are lots of people on the forum who can help you figure out the process. One of the challenges we've also had is that it's not free to flood the network. You have to pay equivalent of 20 BitShares per transaction. And so if you're generating thousands and thousands of transactions, it doesn't take long to drain your wallet, and then you can't test anymore. So if you need funds, post on the forum. We can get some test funds to you to help with testing. So that's where we are there. Can
I stop you real quick on that point? The funds, is this going to be just like a UIA token, or is this going to be BTS sent to their wallets?
You actually need core asset, because core asset is what all transaction fees ultimately must be paid in.
Sure. Makes sense. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, it's been very encouraging to see how robust the network has performed this past week. We are working on improving the initial connection and removing some of the spam and slow synchronization issues. Graphene does things a little bit differently than BitShares does in the networking code. has some assumptions about the way BitShares behaves. We can actually improve the networking code based on the new graphene rules. Dan and Eric are actively working on that this week, and so I expect to see some improvements there. But overall, I'd say it's been running very stably. We've had several different people actively producing blocks this entire time, and very high participation rate with almost no forking that we can detect. So good work, everyone who has been testing. This is a very positive development, and I expect that by the end of this week, we will have the entire protocol and P2P code ready to go for 30-day countdown. So
Crypto Prometheus is asking how many seconds are the blocks on the testnet currently?
Yeah, so the testnet's currently operating at 5-second blocks.
Okay, so this is where we left off last week, as you said. Just a reminder to everybody who didn't attend or listen last week. You're going to scale it down as it allows, right? Like the plan is to go to 5, and then once you can get to 3, and continue going down, right?
Yes. The issue we have right now is that our bottleneck is not blockchain processing performance at this point in time. It's network latency and communication overhead. And that's mostly due to our Bitcoin style broadcast architecture. We've got a new protocol figured out, but these things are complex and will probably take a month at least to implement and debug and get reliable. If you remember, there are a lot of corner cases in networking code, particularly P2P networking code. So it's not a trivial thing to replace. And we didn't want to make that kind of major surgery this close to when we want to launch. So we've postponed that and decided to just go a little bit slower. It's not like we're going to end up with 100,000 transactions overnight or even 1 transaction per second overnight. So I doubt very many people will feel bad about having to wait an average of 2.5 seconds for their transaction to be confirmed. So
one question that I just asked down below so I could not forget it. Did these network protocol changes have any new attack vectors that are opened up or anything that affects the security of the entire ecosystem?
Any network changes has the potential to do that. So if I knew of them, we would design around them. The primary thing that protects the network is that transactions and blocks cannot propagate unless they validate.
Okay, go ahead.
So if you attempt to flood the network, you'd have to flood it with valid transactions, and that's costly. So, but I'm sure there are weaknesses to be found in the networking code. Fortunately, the only thing that attacking those weaknesses can do is to provide a temporary disruption of service. It's not going to compromise any funds. So it'd be kind of like doing a denial of service on an exchange. All right, you can't use the exchange until the attack dies down or a countermeasure is implemented. Those are the type of things we're facing there. But we're using BitShares 2 code more or less with as few modifications as necessary to get going, and the BitShares 2 protocol has to date not been attacked. That's probably a little bit of because the fact that we're small, but also just the nature of the protocols. It's kind of like the Bitcoin protocol, so it's relatively robust.
Out of curiosity, is the testnet? I know I've been talking about DevShares a little bit here, back and forth. Where does DevShares come in on this, and has DevShares been attacked? Because I know that you guys said, when you announced DevShares, you basically said, this is meant to be attacked. We want you to attack it. Do you see any people doing that?
Well,
and do you think that there will be a place for this?
Honestly, I haven't looked at DevShares since we switched to graphene. Any attacks or weaknesses on that particular blockchain do not apply. to graphene, or they would apply in a different way. So this current test net that we've been running for the past week is our test on that. And we've identified a few minor attacks just by, a bug in the code has revealed that, oh yeah, you can kind of spam a node. And so we're closing that right now. But that's where we are with testing. We're always going to find something. We're making it as robust as we can, as quickly as we can. The key thing and the most important thing is the ledger. And the graphene ledger seems to be very solid. Everything else is just infrastructure to get data into the ledger.
Sure. Now, where do we stand on the updates? Are there any other updates that you're going to be wanting to give? And also, are there community questions on this topic?
Other things that are going on is we're still actively working on the user interface. The user interface is the thing that's slowing us down the most, primarily because we are all learning React. We're learning the best design patterns, and we're trying to get things standardized in a way that's going to be as robust as possible. So if you've been following the user interface development, you might have noticed that we took one step backwards in functionality last week and early part of this week, and we're trying to get back that functionality after doing some pretty significant refactoring. The good news is that the refactored code is smaller, easier to maintain, and more robust. But the downside is that it's taken us a little bit longer to get to where we want to be. I'm really excited about our architecture. It makes it very easy to build new interfaces on top of it and to synchronize with blockchain state. That's always been the challenge, is how do we design a user interface that can efficiently stay up to date and display what's going on in the blockchain when you've got a blockchain as complex as graphene, with markets, withdrawal permissions, advanced asset issuer permissions, hierarchical accounts, and all that stuff. There are a lot of moving parts that we need to represent in the interface, and trying to get the right architecture in place in the wallet to make that easy to extend, easy to synchronize, has been the main challenge we've had. But I am very happy with the architecture we have in place. And I know not everyone here is a web developer, but I'd say we're using the best practices from React and all the lessons learned. And we've really been studying how that stuff should work. And I'm very excited about what we've learned from that. So where does that leave us as an overall project? It leaves us with about 30 days to polish up the user interface. Right now, I'm very confident that we can have a user interface that is more stable and more usable than the current BitShares interface. About 30 days, probably well under 30 days, because we already have a lot of the features working. Because the protocol is almost tested and our test nets are proving successful, I'm feeling pretty confident about the 30-day countdown coming up this week. If no major issues are found and we are able to resolve a few little things that we've identified in the networking code. By next Friday, we should have 30-day countdown and the official announcement of the BitShares 2.0 upgrade date. So that's where we are with that. Are there any questions regarding that?
I'll say this, Ken Code brought up Lime Wallet and Moonstone too. So those are other third-party wallets that are coming out probably not too long after the release of Graphene. So you're feeling pretty comfortable with the GUI interface, like you guys are getting some real progress in then.
Pretty comfortable with the architecture and the rate at which I believe we can develop on it. So I've been using it to do transfers. I've imported all my balances. I've seen all that stuff work. At the moment, voting is broken. It used to work. We broke it. Now we're working to fix it because we're upgrading the architecture. the updated architecture is less fragile. I'm tired of things that are constantly breaking in the wallet and data synchronization issues and fetching issues. So that's a big thing that we're moving forward here, and it's just taken us a while to figure that out. But I'm really comfortable with the architecture. I really, really like React.js, as anyone who's read the reviews of it online can see. It's an amazing piece of technology. So I'm pretty comfortable with that, and I'm very comfortable with where we'll be able to be in 30 days with a wallet that is superior to the current BitShares wallet experience, and suitable enough to start the migration to BitShares 2.0 and the graphene code base. I will say that it's not going to be the complete, super polished user interface with all the bells and whistles that we would have liked to have had on launch. We're going to settle with a stable, usable interface, and then add to it systematically in the weeks and months after it comes out to make it better. The user interface is something that does not require hard forks. It's something that lots of innovative developers can work on at the same time. And we're hoping that with the referral program in place, there will be lots of incentive to compete, to provide and improve on the interface. So we really don't want to hold up launch while we perfect the interface, as long as we have something that is a viable replacement to the current wallet. So that's where we are. Just so I understand correctly, then the user interface won't be something that's licensed by Graphene. It'll be open and open source and open and available for anyone to use that code and build off of it and build additional features and functions and their own wallets then. That's partially the case. It's all open source, of course, so anyone can look at it. And if you're building wallets for individual use, that's certainly the case. There's some back-end server-side software for doing faucet account registrations and things like that are not going to be free for all. But the general infrastructure for connecting to a witness node and providing all the data synchronization, those tools will be available for anyone to use. I guess the easiest way to say is we're going to have our own themed wallet with our own special features on it that we're using with our partners, but the core framework and architecture will be available for anyone who wants to provide an alternative. Awesome. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead, if you don't mind, and ask a couple questions that Data asked. He's asked a total of 3 of them here. Question 1 of 2 here. For BitShares 2.0 memberships, there is a lifetime and an annual options for this. Will there be some kind of public data made available that will tell us if a member is a lifetime or annual member?
Yes, we're going to display that as part of the account profile page.
Okay, then number 2, for BitShares 2.0 transaction costs. Will UIAs also have to pay 20 cents per transaction when they receive their UIA?
It doesn't matter what the nature of the transfer is. 20 BitShares will be paid. The asset issuer can have a fee pool, and they can define the exchange rate between their own asset and BitShares. And when the user transfers that user-issued asset, part of the asset will be given back to the issuer in exchange for the 20 BTS needed to pay the fee. So users if I wanted to, I could provide all the fees for brownie points by offering to buy back brownie points at some exchange rate in order to pay your transfer fees. It sort of sets the floor or allows single use. You can transfer brownie points for free or almost for free. So that's sort of the idea behind that. Transaction fees are what they are. They're fixed price regardless of what it is.
A fixed price of what it is.
So someone has to pay a fee, whether it's the issuer or the person transferring it. The fee is going to be paid. The fee is denominated in BitShares. There's no way around paying the fee. So can you set some sort of limit on how many
transfers someone can make with your UIA, then I'm just thinking it could be kind of dangerous if you had somebody that, didn't like you and decided to just go back and forth and charge up your, charge it up if you're paying the fee, right?
They could. The idea is that the user issued asset should have some type of value. And if it doesn't have any value, then what's it doing on our system?
One question that I would have is, if I'm the receiver of an asset, is there any way that I can accept it? Kind of like whenever you open an email, just kind of like, okay, I will accept this.
Because the transaction has to already be broadcast and processed and included in the networks, incurred all the costs before you even receive it.
Oh, that's a great point.
I know this has been brought up before, but do you have any ideas about methods to be able to set up some sort of micropayments? I know that ultimately you can't get the transaction registered in the ledger without paying 20 cents, and this has just kind of been a barrier for some of the business models we've been looking at, and I'm wondering, is there a way with some sort of smart contract? I know we don't have those yet, but if someone were to write a smart contract and get it included in the
you're talking about micropayment transfers?
Yeah, a way to transfer amounts, say 3 to 5 cents without having to pay a 20-cent transaction fee.
Right. If you're going to transfer amounts that are that small, you should probably set up a payment channel, kind of like Bitcoin has for their micropayments. The architecture for doing that is part of the escrow operations. It would require a hard fork. It's not insurmountable, but it's certainly not something that we want to. We don't want to change the protocol at this stage in the game because we don't want to delay any further on getting the upgrade out. But I would really like to see payment channels opened up so that you can negotiate back and forth between two parties and then close out the final deal when it's all said and done.
Okay, great. I'll look a little bit more into that. I'm not super familiar with that, but thanks for the lead.
The idea of the payment channels is I authorize you to withdraw up to some limit from me, and then I give you a transaction, and I put the funds in escrow. The funds are sitting there. I can't touch them. It's kind of like when you swipe your card at a gas station. They put $50 on your card, then you start pumping the gas. The meter starts running up, and every time an ounce of gas flows into the car, I give the wallet will give the person a statement that says, now you're authorized to withdraw $1, $2, $3, all the way up to say $25. And as long as you broadcast that authorization, you can only broadcast once. When you broadcast that authorization, you collect payment and I get my change back. And then there's a timeout. If you don't broadcast anything within a certain period of time, I get it all back. So with that type of payment channel in place, all the little micro payments that you're doing at a couple cents at a time don't have to go on the network, and you still have certainty of payment. And that's a really nice feature for doing high volume, pay-as-you-go, metered type services.
Metered services? What do you mean by metered type services?
If you're going to charge people for bandwidth, or if you're going to have people, say you want to download a bunch of $1 songs from a music store, you set up a payment channel, you authorize up to $50 worth of purchases in the next month, and then you can buy songs for $1 a piece. At the end of the month, anything you don't buy gets refunded to you. And then you save a 20-cent transaction fee on 30 small purchases.
Hey, Crypto, do you have any more questions or comments that you'd like to bring in, or data? Or really anybody, but you two seem like this is really important to you.
As far as the payment channels go, I'm going to have to digest that a little bit and pore over it a little more. I don't have quite as sharp of a mind to get this right off the bat. I kind of have an idea of what Bytemaster's talking about, but Data's other question, I think, was one that we both shared. We kind of pool them together and ask them at the end of the week here. And that's as far as annual versus lifetime memberships, just when you're pulling that data off the blockchain, via the API, we'll be able to tell the difference between a lifetime and an annual, or will it be membership with a expiration date? Or
yeah, it's membership with an expiration date. Lifetime members have an infinite expiration date. Annual members have an expiration date that is some amount of time in the future. And you can, pay for 2 years in advance. So if you want a 2-year membership, you can pay $40 right up front. Or you can go 6 months and extend it by a year. So basically, it's pay $20 to extend your membership by a year, or $100 to extend it to forever.
Great. Okay. Yep, that's what I needed. We're done, Fuzzy. Back to you.
No, Crypto. Back to all of us. Okay, all playing around aside, does anybody else have any questions or comments at this juncture?
I'd like to say that some of the stuff I'm working on right now are the login protocol for the wallet, two-factor authentication protocols. So if you want to be a two-factor authentication provider, we want to have a standardized protocol so that the wallet can work with any number of second-factor providers. And so these are going to be similar to the merchant API, which is on the wiki, Graphene. So the Graphene wiki, we're working on defining those protocols right now. This is at the API specification point of view. There is nothing implemented with respect to two-factor authentication, although I did talk to a significant two-factor provider, and they're very interested in helping implement an API that will work with what we want to do for managing keys and providing a second level of authentication.
Fox is asking, is two-factor authentication already going to be ready at launch?
No. We are at the stage of designing the protocol and the handshaking required between the provider and the wallet to automate the handling and signing of transactions. Of course, the blockchain supports it because we support multi-sig, hierarchical wallets, all kinds of fun things like that. But
just needs to be built.
Yes.
Lucky Bit brings up here, he says, will anybody be grandfathered into the lifetime membership? Sorry, that's a little bit of a alteration, Lucky Bit.
Anyone who referred users prior to June 8th.
Okay.
I have a question somewhere out from left field. I think that BitUSD is nomenclature that financial guys would get, but to see a sign up at a Starbucks that we accept BitUSD, I don't think that would go with the average person, as well as something like BitBucks or just Bucks, BUX. What do you guys think?
I think you're really right on the dot there. You got everything understood, and you're right. We've been targeting BitUSD toward people who know what a USD is, but most people don't think in terms of US dollars. They just think of dollars. So I like BitBucks. That works. It's kind of slang. So I think that's all goes into the branding. I'm actually working with someone who is actively preparing a wallet dedicated to BitUSD. So I guess Lucky Bit just said BitCash. So yes, I'm working with them to help market and promote BitUSD in places where regular users will use it, where we can get a double-sided market, where merchants and users have a need to use it and incentive to refer other users to it. So we're targeting a small market there. I can't say too much more than that, but yeah, I'm excited for what BitCash is doing.
Thank you.
Also, there actually exists currently a BitCash.
Yeah, maybe I leaked on that. I thought maybe someone said, oh yeah, you know about it already. I didn't realize that was the case.
Oh, sorry, Bytemaster. That's why we're here.
Never
know when it's going to come out.
Along the same lines, ChangeTip supports monikers, which is giving names to different amounts. So, for example, I would like to call maybe 1,000th or a 10,000th of an ounce of bit gold, something like a giggle. And right now I don't see that being supported.
Wallet support for different symbols for a denomination of another asset. It sounds like an interesting idea.
Well, isn't this is kind of the interesting thing to me is the more I've been thinking about is, we always talk about, or at least the precious metals and hard money lovers out there talk about hard money. Talk about intrinsic value. And when you really think about it, what we've been, an underlying concept to what we've been talking about this entire time that we've been working in this area is the idea of intrinsic value and how we imbue it into this stuff, right? And it's a lot of it comes down to like a social currency like brownies, or giggles, or whatever you want to call it. It can be your own individual currency, and it might not necessarily be a currency in the common way of thinking about it, but it has elements of that. You know what I mean? Do you see these things as being, because in my mind, I see that bringing more of a demand for and more volume overall to the network if people did do something like that. Am I wrong?
I don't know. Are you?
Well, I'm kind of curious what people think here, because this is whenever the brownies came out, it really got me thinking, because you've heard me talk about DKP. Everybody here has heard me talk about dragon kill points. How many times, right? Like, even gamers here know what dragon kill points are. Non-gamers here know what dragon kill points are by now. But that's kind of the same. You see these social dynamics playing that you see in video game worlds and things like that playing out here. And I'm kind of curious because, what's a DKP?
Fuzzy, I absolutely agree that the UIA could be a piece of bedrock, fundamental, something that drives the BitShares network, even as much as, if not more than, market pegged assets. I mean, the network based. Obviously, we have individual privatized market pegged assets which are based on UIAs, but ultimately I think the hang up or the bottleneck is going to be people actually figuring out ways to start using them. I guess what I'm saying is I think it's more of a social bottleneck than it is a technology bottleneck. People need to start going out and experimenting and using these things and coming up with new and innovative ways to take advantage of what we have on the platform. And, once that starts to take off, and once we have a few examples of something that works, I think of Bunker Shares, for example, is one that comes to mind that I think has a lot of potential, and I'm really excited to see it, play out in the real world. Then I think that, obviously people will start copying things that work, and we're going to have more and more people taking advantage of this. But as far as its usefulness, I can't really imagine anything more useful than giving people the ability to issue their own, currency, as it were, or their own tokens to use as they see fit.
Here's where I want to see things take off. This is kind of a niche market, but something I'm actually interested in. If you follow the alternative energy, free energy circles, there's lots of people that have these inventions and these circuits that are claiming to be close to over unity, or actually producing net power. And the challenge is always getting other people to reproduce it. And if you follow the forums, some people have success in reproducing it, and then something happens and they get shut down by black helicopters. I would like to see prediction markets set up for each and every one of these devices, and someone be in the business of just certifying and verifying and judging whether or not the device actually works. Because that will help focus people into, hey, these are the things, these are the ones that are complete nut jobs, because there is just way too much information out there for any one individual to process. And I know that there are probably more people interested in that type of stuff than there are even interested in cryptocurrency. And I think it'd be a great way of demonstrating how blockchain technology and prediction markets can help further the cause of science.
That's a great idea.
I had one idea regarding my user-issued assets, Schmitz and Giggles, that they could be used for some type of network marketing or MLM with less legal restrictions, since they're not really money. And they could also be used for some type of bonding. I intend on every April Fool's Day to reallocate all my Schmitz and Giggles and take about 10% of them away, and maybe even just keep them all on pause for a week or so while I figure out what to do with them.
You sound like you got an interesting project there.
You know what I'm waiting for, guys? I'm just going to say it straight out, and I don't know if anybody else is thinking this. As soon as, I don't care what the value of those Schmitz and Giggles are, as soon as you take them away, you are going to have people beating down your door.
Well, that way they definitely are not money. I know that Bytemaster went to great lengths to make sure that the user-issued assets are not considered money for legal purposes.
Makes sense. I'll go into Carpari because he got to us first before that. What gateways do we see as viable or likely for public graphene blockchain without required person-to-account identifiers? Good question.
Are you asking about gateways that don't do KYC and that are also fiat
like
gateways? I don't think you're going to find any legitimate fiat gateways that don't do KYC or are not at risk of being shut down. But I do think that you'll probably see lots of people performing bridge functions. And bridge functions are an entirely different animal. They allow one person to trade one asset for another asset with no ongoing liability, no deposit. It's just like buying or selling a baseball card. If you have that type of thing going on, then there's probably a lot of potential there. And I can see people wanting to do that with local BitShares type things where you meet people locally. Once we have escrow transactions in a future hard fork, probably the same one that supports the payment channels we discussed earlier, then you probably have lots of direct person-to-person trades of fiat for BitUSD. You have to go person-to-person. If you go through any type of centralized exchange doing large volumes, it's more convenient, but it's going to be KYC enforced.
This actually goes very well into where Fox was going with his question. I don't know if you listened to the John Underwood interview, did you? Or Hangout, did you? Don't know why I keep calling it an interview now, too.
I haven't. I wasn't on that Mumble, but I heard it was a great session.
Well, he wanted to ask if you had anything to add to it, so I guess that's a good point to just, I think that answers your question, Fox. But what I will say then, to extend this a little bit further, is because we were talking about KYC as well, and he was talking about how KYC and all the regulations that go around all this are going to be something that Identibit focuses on ensuring in a decentralized sort of fashion. Are you familiar with how, I'd imagine you are, I mean, you've probably talked to him about how to do a lot of this stuff. But, I mean, have you any insight on how they're doing this? And any, maybe any input regarding anything else with respect to this area?
You're asking if I know how Identibit is planning to do know your customer validation?
Yeah, and how it'll be different from, BitShares, for instance.
Okay. The main difference with Identibit is that the blockchain will actually look at the whitelists and require all accounts to be blessed by an active identity provider in order to transfer. What basically that means is before you can receive funds or transfer above a certain threshold, you need to get your account certified, and then the blockchain will allow it. So I guess that's the main difference, whereas in BitShares, it's optional and the blockchain doesn't enforce it. I think it amounts to the setting on the core asset of the blockchain the whitelist flag, and then having the delegates elect the accounts that get to be the whitelist providers. So the required set of the whitelist providers are going to be controlled by the stakeholders. That's my understanding. Of course, you should check the Identibit white paper for more information. There's been some discussion about whether or not they're going to have a referral program that's similar or different from ours. They have lots of opportunities to do different referral programs because they have shares they can share with every new account that's signed up, and they can prevent Sybil attacks on that because they're doing identity verification.
So are you guys seeing places where BitShares will work alongside with Identibit, or do you see them kind of not having any real crossover?
As much as possible, I'd like to keep the two protocols compatible with similar operations for things, so that tools developed for Identibit can be used for BitShares and vice versa.
Is that the kind of relationship that you feel comfortable that as long as that remains intact as far as the protocols, the relationship aspect of it is such that these things will be generally made available to things like BitShares?
That's the goal. It saves everyone money.
True. It makes sense on this side. I'm just curious if you've had any conversations with respect to this to John or any other people who are working on similar projects that are DPost based.
I've been almost entirely heads down on BitShares 2.0 release for the past several weeks. So since Identibit came out, I actually haven't talked to John at all about Identibit. I reviewed some of his white papers and added some clarifying points, but that's the extent of my involvement these past several weeks. I suspect that once he gets the funding that he's seeking to build and develop it, that my involvement will increase as we try to nail down the exact technical implementation. But for now, I refer you to his white papers and his website if you want to know what he's thinking of building.
I just really want to quickly, Stan, during the actual interview or hangout that we had, group interview we can call it, I guess, he did say that you were busy. You were extremely busy while he was there, but that he's talked to Stan for like 2 days straight. Is Stan here right now? And would he be willing to let us know any on this?
Stan's listening, but I've got about one more minute, so let's
Gotcha.
Address any last issues before handing it off to other people.
No problem. Brindle Swan, you were going to say something.
Most people get their cryptocurrency from Coinbase, and then they have to go through identity verification anyway. I see Identibit as a way to get into a cryptocurrency without the centralized identity verification, and then you buy your BitShares.
That's a beautiful explanation of it.
The thing Identibit's going to provide that I'm most excited about is the public headers of all transactions, which means that you can prove payment on the Identibit network. And you can't prove payment in the current financial system in any easily verified way. or freely verified way. So if I send you money, I know the transaction, you know the transaction, and everyone knows that the hash of that transaction is in the ledger. If there is a dispute between us, I can show the details of the transaction to an arbitration agent who can then do something as a result. So if you are in the Identibit system and it gets successful and it's integrated with the financial system, like John Underwood hopes, then I can transfer you dollars on that network, and you can transfer me BitUSD on BitShares with escrow. And if there is any dispute, an escrow agent on the BitShares network can verify that the dollars were sent on the Identibit network, and then can automatically and securely arbitrate the payment. In fact, the arbitration could be entirely automated on the blockchain. So I think there is a lot of benefits that Identibit gives to a network like BitShares or any blockchain, because we have most transactions are private, but you have a easily verifiable arbitration of payment.
Well, we're looking forward to more hangouts with John Underwood, so I look forward to everybody joining up, and kind of I really would like to kind of bring the community together around his hangouts as well, and future DAC development that we feel is going to be extremely valuable for the ecosystem. And I think Identibit is going to be one of them. It's funny how my ideas change over time and what we learn in this entire process. But at one point in time, I would have been like, no, Identibit, we should all be anonymous. But anyway, thank you, Bytemaster, for showing up. Thank you, everybody else, for showing up, obviously.
There are almost 80 people here today. This has got to be some kind of record for a real-time live conference in a cryptocurrency community. Thank you, everyone, for showing up and your active engagement in the community. This is something that is unprecedented, that all of you can be here at this exact same time, engaging in a real-time way is really encouraging, and shows that BitShares is alive and well and not going anywhere. So thank you, everyone who showed up today.
I'm sure there will be plenty more to come, and we have room for up to 1,600, expandable to 3,200. It'll be, I suspect things will be slightly different if we ever reach that point, but yeah, we've got it there.